From February 13 until April 28, 2013, the San Jose Museum of Quilts and Textiles is featuring Indian Folk Textiles from the collection of Carol Summers. This unique exhibition of 50 objects demonstrates the wealth and the breadth of the Indian folk textile tradition. It showcases a colorful variety of decorated textiles created with brightly colored patchwork, embroidery, applique, tie-dye, block printing, painted cloth, quilting, hand weaving, and hand sewing to dramatic effect. These objects are highlights from the private collection that local artist Carol Summers has been gathering since 1974. The collection is comprised of a range of textiles created by unknown women and men in India, both utilitarian and festive, with no pretense of being comprehensive. They are 20th century folk textiles, collected with an appreciation for the beauty of design and craftsmanship, rather than perfection. Mr. Summers was often accompanied on his buying expeditions by his good friend Ron Garrigas, a Balinese artist. They met on a trek in Nepal and are here recalling that first meeting.
Become animated.
Become animated. Animate.
Animated.
Say a few words about India.
It's a very strange place.
A very strange place.
With very strange and wonderful people.
Yes. Fabulous. You know, we met in Nepal.
You and Ron met in Nepal?
We met in Nepal.
In Kathmandu?
He was traveling with his son, and I was traveling with mine. And they didn't have a tent, and I did. So, and we were going over a pass that was like
18,000 feet.
18,000 feet.
Was that the Annapurna Circuit?
Yeah.
Yes.
What was it like when you got up to 18 or 19,000 feet?
It was fine, but at 14,000 I had altitude sickness, and Carol put me up in a tent with 7 other guys and fed me all kinds of water, which I hadn't taken with me, and 2 cups of ramen and 20 milligrams of Valium,
and that's the mark of a true friend.
And yes, and then I woke up in the morning and popped over the top. Well, of course, he's always ahead of me because I'm slowpoke.
I'm Deborah Corsini, the curator of the museum, and I'm really pleased to introduce our 2 exhibitions. This is Carol Summers, and this is his collection of Indian folk textiles that he has been gathering for the past 30 years on many, many trips to India. And I'm really interested to hear more about what he has to say about his beautiful collection. Carol is an artist in his own right. He's a printmaker and has traveled to India to sort of discover the beauty and the wonder of Indian textiles, which are just prevalent everywhere in the society. And this is this showcases some of that beautiful, amazing stitchery and embroidery. And before I let Carol speak, I just wanted to point out that he has, in fact, and this is what when I first met with him, these are the catalogs that he produced of his collection. And there's actually a 3rd catalog that's in the shop as well.
Yes, just finished.
And so the catalogs are really quite beautiful. And anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that we have these. So Carol, we're going to be a little bit short today, maybe about 20, 25 minutes. So anyway.
Well, I don't have a formal speech. I thought we would just wander around and I'd talk about the pieces. These 2 are what's called kantas, and they're made from used dhotis. Dhotis are what men wear. You see in pictures of Gandhi, he's always spinning. Well, it's because the men spin the cotton from which dhotis are woven. They're just simple, undecorated weavings about the size of a sari, which they wrap around themselves. and when they're old and worn out, why, they put a few of them together and stitch them together. You can see in these, in both of these, that these are stitched together, and then the colored stitchings that make a design, whether it be abstract or of animals, helps keep it stuck together. Generally speaking, they're made by both Muslims and Hindus. Usually, if it's got images like this, you can figure that it's Hindu, and if it is totally designed and abstract in the sense that there are no images of actual objects, it is probably Muslim. They are don't show on both sides, as opposed to things like this. This is a rumal from a place called Chamba, which is in Uttar Pradesh and foothills of the Himalayas. It's a town famous for these rumals. There's another one framed someplace, I don't know where, but they're interesting together in that the other one is stitched by a housewife in town. They're beautifully done, usually a simple stitch that goes around and back and comes up so that the front and back are almost identical. This piece, I was told when I bought it, it was a snake charmer's cloth. And I thought that was charming, and I've always repeated it. Whether or not it's true, I don't know. I've never seen another one.
It looks like the patterns of different kinds of snakes. The skin.
Yeah. Here's another kanta. You see, it's the thread just goes in back and comes back, but it's obviously has a front and a back, but not that different. This piece is a temple applique pieces. It's a standardized piece. I mean, they're not. This is not a unique piece at all. It's missing a few inches from the bottom, and missing a little bit of its edge. Almost invariably, the breasts have been replaced because I suppose everyone who goes by touches them, and so eventually they have to be redone. This piece is from a place in Rajasthan called Barmer. Things from Barmer are usually heavy doses of geometrics like this, and I always think of them as Muslim, but it does have some, stylized peacocks in it. Peacocks are sort of the bird of Rajasthan. There are many wild peacocks there. There are a couple of tribal groups that are quite well represented here. The Rabari are one. This is a Rabari woman's top, a blouse. And this is a Rabari piece too. The other are Banjara is the name of the tribe, and they are centered more in Maharashtra, the state that Bombay is in, and inland. The Banjara are generally thought of as being the ancestors of the gypsies in Europe, that they migrated to Europe many, many years ago. I mean, thousands of years ago. This is a horse cover. The two holes at the top are for the ears, and this is all silk. It's unusual to have a animal cover in silk, but usually they would be like this, which is a bull cover, and they're usually in cotton. Another bull cover. This is a camel cover. This is not a very old one. It's all machine stitched. Camel covers are heavily decorated, and by and large I'm not very fond of them, so I was very happy to find one that I liked. Now these, although they look the same, they're not. This is a man's wedding face cover. Human eyes fit that spacing, but these are holes for cow horns. So this is a decoration for a cow, as are all these two also. This is a Banjara piece. Well, this is what's called a sanchi, as opposed to, and that's another one, as opposed to regular pulkaris, of which there are some shown elsewhere, which are, so sanchi is more varied, more of a picture, although not necessarily with a top or bottom. This one I'm not so sure about in so much as it's only animals, but pieces like this, for instance, which have things going on between people that you may not be able to figure out quite what's going on, are presumably from stories that Hindus would be familiar with. And so the people that would mostly see a thing like this would know what the stories are they come from. I don't know what they are, but
Are these natural dyes in the background, particularly that?
no, these are synthetics.
Oh.
Synthetics always have a poison quality that stands out, like these. And of course, you know, red dyes, it's always been difficult to find a natural red dye. Cochineal is one, but cochineal doesn't grow every place in the world, and it's hard to find, and it's become expensive. You can get it in Mexico if you look hard enough for it, but also cochineal is a darker red than this, and is I have a piece in there that is cochineal.
So Carol, sorry, we have a little bit of time left.
Okay.
And a lot of textiles. I just want to point out on this textile to everyone this wonderful black smoke that's coming out of the train. These fabulous, wonderful details in here. And I want you.
Another train at the top, you see, repeating this one down here.
I just want you to talk about this
Okay.
amazing piece.
Well, this is probably made to hang outside if you wanted to. You're probably in some place that you might have a roof. India is a hot place, you know. So this is hung up to block the wind in case you're having dinner outside, or a party, or a meeting, or whatever. And these little parasols indicate that it belonged to a Raj. And then the rest is pretty self-explanatory. At the top in the middle, there are two women. They're holding a rope that goes around the stick in the middle that goes into the pot where there's cream that's being churned to make ghee. And you don't see the ropes, but they both pull them and they're twisted around so that it spins. And that's a very common image in village textiles of the two women making butter.
The pieces that are on the red wall, sure, I think unique to your collection.
Right?
And then we'll move on. Yeah.
This is the red wall over here.
So this is the red one.
This is the red wall.
This is the red room.
These are called kanduris. And in my latest book, I have a little section in the front that talks about the kanduris because they're not a very common thing to see, and these three pieces are old ones, which is very unusual.
Which are the oldest?
Those two and this one.
Okay.
This you can see is a newer, and this one too. They were. There was a man named Salar Musad who was killed in battle in 1033, as I recall, and his grave became a pilgrimage place for both Muslims and Hindus. He was a Muslim prince, and he must have been a upstanding figure in the community because he had this following of people who made his grave into a pilgrimage place, and they would give to the temple at the grave these pieces that they would make, and they would have a good deal in common. There would almost always be a cart pulled by either horses or bulls. There would be a temple or a palace, whichever, and there would be a lot of men armed, both riding and afoot, and there very often would be camels and horses and elephants and different kind of animals, and oftentimes a border that would be people and trees. Not always. Now, of course, that one may have lost its border. I have no way of knowing, or it may not have had one. But these others have sort of all those things going on. These they're generally made with poor and worn fabrics, which indicate to me that the people who made them, I mean, that was not important, but so they were tended to be rather dull in color, but of course things that tourists want to buy are more colorful. So you do see kanduris that seem to me obviously made to sell to tourists, whereas these seem to me obviously made to give to the temple. And in that sense, I view these as real, and those that are made is airport art, is African sculpture that is made to sell to tourists who.
Does the temple sell them?
Excuse me?
Is it the temple that sells them if they were?
No. I suspect that these pieces were filched from the temple by someone who then sold them to a dealer, who then sold them to me. But I mean, that's supposition on my part.
And the last piece I'd like you to talk about is this wonderful
Dress, yes. Well, it's from an area, the Himalayas, which is near Tibet, and this is a Tibetan dress in essence. But whoever made it was living in India, and but the person must have been a Tibetan person, because this is a Tibetan dress. It's tie-dyed. It's all wool. I can't tell what kind of wool. I don't think it's yak. Yak's wool is, I don't think that's soft, but I'm not an expert on yak wool. These are not common pieces to find. This is the only one I've ever seen for sale, as a matter of fact. So I felt blessed when I ran across it. It's dyed, of course, with indigo and saffron, which is the way country people make a green, and I don't know what the red dye is, but it's not aniline.
Carol, could you point out the cochineal piece that you said was in this room?
That one,
The center.
The center one?
the center one. Cochineal is a bug that grows on cactus in Mexico, and if you crush one, that's the color you get. And it's been used anciently, but the Spaniards really blew it in Mexico, because Mexican farmers are the perfect situation for growing cochineal, but they weren't quite up to that. So you can find cochineal in Mexico too, but you really have to look for it. Down around Oaxaca, you can find some.
I look forward to hearing your stories.
All right.
Yes, every piece must have a wonderful
Susan will find this
story.
I did some tours of duty for the NIS, which were 20 times.